Hello, everybody. Welcome to our newest episode of Guitar Hero Podcast. I wanted to first off thank you for the amount of support for our last interview with Adam Jennings. He posted a lot of his social media, primarily on Instagram, how much he enjoyed it. And I really do recommend that you give him a lot of support. If you want, please go back into our last episode, and please go follow him in his socials. Now, I wanted to start off with it's kind of a very special occasion right now because our next guest, I never thought in a million years we were gonna get somebody like this. But right now, in the very same call right now, we have the man that we've all seen him in the Guitar Hero uh, uh, bonuses on our games with the making of, the behind the
And
scenes
Tony
of
Hawk.
everybody. Pretty much he's been involved with Neversoft with pretty much all the games, including Guitar Hero and Tony Hawk. So, people, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alan Flores. How are you doing, sir?
Hey guys, I'm doing good. That was a great intro. Hope I can live up to the hype. So, thanks.
Thank you so much for your time, Alan. Honestly, um, so to get things started, tell the audience who you are. What were you doing before Neversoft? What was your hobby, or what made you like get into the game industry right now?
Let's see. So when I got into games, kind of weird. A lot of people studied games and knew the games was going to be their career. But when I started, like I got a degree in physics, and once I didn't want to go to graduate school, I wanted to go, get a job. So once I graduated, I couldn't really get a job with a bachelor's degree in physics. It's really like a research and technical kind of thing.
Mm,
So it was just kind of like I didn't know really what I was going to do. So I started learning like some 3D programs on my own. I was learning this program called Animation Master, which was like a character modeler. This was like 25, 30 years ago, so very primitive, right? So I was learning that, and that sort of led me into getting a job as a character artist. The first company that I worked for was a company called Real Time Associates. I worked on a couple of games there. The biggest game I worked on was called Battle Stations. It was like a ship fighting game, and that was kind of cool. So started as a 3D artist, and then that led to being like a level designer, and that led to me being a game designer. And the first job I got at Neversoft was I worked on the Spider-Man game, which was a dream come true. So I was fortunate to be able to get on that, and then moved on to Tony Hawk, and then Guitar Hero, and years later, and now I'm working on a WWE game. So it's been a long winding career.
pretty impressive stuff. So
That's very cool.
I wanted to ask you something. So you pretty much said that you first worked on Battle Station, right? I think that was the game. So I wanted to ask how were you brought on by Neversoft, if I don't mind asking.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I worked with a guy, his name was Chris Archer. He was a producer at Real Time Associates, and then he went and he worked at Activision. And I think it was at GDC, one of those things up in San Francisco. And I was meeting with a friend of mine, a former producer at Neversoft. And we were at some barbecue place, just having lunch. And then that producer from Activision was there. And he's like, "Oh, I know some guys that are working on the Spider Man game, and they could really use your help, and you should contact them." So then I contacted them. And I was living out I was living in like Venice at that time. I went out to the far end of the San Fernando Valley, which was Woodland Hills. I'm like, I don't even know where this place is. There's this weird little studio across the street from bowling alley. I went in there and it was a small group of people. I think there were like 20, 25 people when I started there. And I had an interesting interview. Those guys were, they're a different type of guys. So I fit in pretty well. So I was fortunate to get that job.
Wow, that's really
That's
awesome.
very cool.
So yeah, like you have been working with Neversoft for quite some time, really. So I don't know, like after Spider-Man, I'm not sure if the next game was Tony Hawk or was the other game, but I wanted to ask, what was your entire, I don't know, your experience with working with one of the most recognizable skaters, Tony Hawk, and then like um I think somebody, I'm not sure if it was Dodie or somebody else, but I think it was that that Tony Hawk was considering going into Rockstar Games, but then ultimately decided to go with you guys on Neversoft. I don't know. Like, what was your experience with working with him through one and then so forth before Guitar Hero?
So the first Tony Hawk game I worked on was Tony Hawk 3, so it was already established. I saw that I came on right when Tony Hawk 1 was launching, and I saw that that game was blowing up. So I got to play Tony Hawk 2 while I was working on Spider-Man, and I got to see that this game was blowing up. It was so much fun. It was one of those things like I remember the first time I took home an early build and was playing it at home. My wife heard me playing this, and I'm like screaming and like throwing controller. She's like, "Are you having fun?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm having fun," but it doesn't sound like I'm having fun, right? Because you're still learning how to do the controls and stuff. But it was always cool to have Tony in the office. You'd see him all the time, just walking around. It just kind of became like routine after a while. It's like, hey, that's Rick and Tony Hawk just
That's
walking down
Tony.
the hallway. Like, hey, what's up, man? Hey, how's it going? And it was cool to have his input. All those skaters would come in all the time and talk about things. Rodney Mullen was very, very influential. And like he would give us like skating demos, and so we could understand how the board is supposed to move and all the crazy tricks that are possible. It was always fun to work with those guys. Plus, some of them they're crazy dudes, so it was always an interesting time.
Was there anything different with THAW that made it a different experience to work on than Pro Skater?
American Wasteland. That was the first game that had streaming. It was one big streaming world. But we were sort of like being introduced to the technology of doing that. So we have these. You guys probably have played it. You probably know we have these sort of like loading zones. Like you go into a subway tunnel, and then you try and combo through the tunnel, then you come out into a different zone. Like we did that because we didn't know if we could build an entire world of skate lines that was interconnected. So we put in these sort of streaming zones, and it worked. It was a good interim step between the two. It's not like I don't think I've ever seen anybody. Here's my cool combo through the subway loading zone. Like there aren't like great skate spots. It really serves a technical purpose, but that set up things to be able to create a full streaming world, like we did in Project 8, which was like the whole thing is connected. You can combo from one end to the other.
How was your experience with working on Guitar Hero, and how was it like meeting these talented artists like Metallica, Van Halen, Aerosmith, and so on?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Guitar Hero was like, it's funny. It was like you don't really realize how cool. Well, we did realize how cool it was working on it at the time, but like it's just such a monumental impact, of things when we were doing it. It was a whirlwind time, and it started off really great, and then it went down the toilet really quickly because we put out too many games.
Like competitors and stuff.
Yeah, it was. I mean, ourselves and Rock Band, we all contributed to killing that genre because we put out too much product, and some of it wasn't, as good as it could have been, right? So I think we were oversaturating the market. It is what it is, and it just kind of like, destroyed things. And it was like, people saw, they got dollar signs in their eyes. They wanted to sell new hardware every single year. People didn't want to buy a whole new suite of plastic instruments every single year. So it was a problem, right? But it was super fun at the time. When we were working on Guitar Hero 3, I kind of like am sort of amazed at how that game was made because initially we were supposed to be working on it with harmonics, and we had a couple of calls with them, and then it turned out that they weren't going to work on it with us. So then we just had to do it. And we had to rebuild everything with our own engine from scratch, just basically.
You had to. Actually, Guitar Hero 3 is based on Proving Grounds engine internals, from what we know, based on modding the games and whatnot. So because there's a lot of similarities based on the files and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, Activision had a really robust engine. It has a thing called QScript, and we have this function called QBR where you could go in and update scripts in real time without having to reload the level or restart the game, which is something I wish that we had on every engine because it's really good for designers to I want to tweak this value or change the way that the script operates. You hit a button and then you can change it.
It's handy, yeah.
It was still pretty good. I mean, Guitar Hero games are legendary, and they're always fun to play, no matter how old they become. And they cannot thank you enough for these amazing experiences.
So, sorry, Alan. Do you want to finish up with something? I just want to ask something.
I was just say, in terms of meeting the celebrities, like some of them that were amazing. I mean, some of the greatest experience I've ever had. Some of them not so amazing.
Like James Hetfield, Steven Tyler, Kirk Hammett, Gwen Stefani, and so on.
I don't call out anybody as being bad. Some people, it's one of the things. Don't meet your heroes. That's true. But I will say,
is it Alan Levine? Be honest.
I will say, meeting the Metallica guys was really great. And one of the things that I understood early, people give Lars a hard time about things.
Yeah.
And what I don't
Yeah,
think
about
people
drumming.
understand is Lars is the biggest Metallica fan in the world. He's a bigger Metallica fan than you are. Right? And so you may think that it should be this way and it should be this way, but he loves the band more than you do. And when you sit down and talk to him, one time we sat down and talked to him about just shoot the shit about bands and all this kind of stuff. And we were talking about all these shows that they played. That guy knows every single show that they've ever played. He's like, oh, we didn't play that arena in 2002. We played it in fall of 2003, and we didn't play that song. He knows all that stuff, right? And like
That's
with a career as
awesome.
long as they have, how could you keep that in your mind? It was kind of amazing.
That's
and then
amazing.
in contrast, James Hetfield is very like, he's very like closed off, very stoic. But he still loves the band. But he's like, when he says something, everybody has to sit down and listen. Like, okay, we're gonna make that happen. So it was fun working with those guys. It was intimidating, but it was fun.
So
That's
I wanted
awesome.
I
That
wanted
makes
to
me think of a question. When you guys were making Guitar Hero Metallica, what made you guys not to use Trapped Under Ice again in that game? Because like in Guitar Hero Van Halen, you used VOD for Teacher and that was in World Tour. But for Metallica, Trapped Under Ice wasn't there, and there's an Ice Cave level that would have fit greatly for that song.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a super boring answer because I honestly can't remember. There was lots of like, when it comes to picking the songs for those games, there's lots of arguments from lots of sides about things that there's the ones that we want as developers, there are ones that the band want as artists, there's ones that the music licensing guys want too. I can't remember what happened with Trapped Under Ice. I'm pretty sure that we wanted to include it. We want to include all their songs, but I can't remember why we didn't pick that one. I probably just got bumped for something else. We put a bunch of other stuff in there, so maybe we just ran out of bandwidth to do it. I honestly can't remember.
So
That's all right, no worries.
So sorry for interrupting, but you said something interesting during the development for Guitar Hero 3. It was that you were almost close to working with Harmonix since that Red Octane was purchased by like Activision and all that stuff, but then later Harmonix ended up being bought out by MTV, which resulted in them doing Rock Band. Like what was the whole entire thing that was supposed to be if Harmonix wasn't bought out by MTV and haven't done their thing?
Well, initially they were going to do the current generation's SKUs of the game, and we were going to take on the 360 version. That's what the initial talk was. But I mean, that fell apart so quickly because they were already talking to MTV and talking about doing Rock Band. So we talked to them a couple of times, and then that was it. And then we didn't hear anything from them. And it's just, I don't know if you guys know about this, but once the game launched, we got this big package sent to us from Harmonix, and it said it had a note that said it said "open in the dark." So we're like, are they sending us like a bag of anthrax? I mean, I don't know what it is, right? So we went in a room, and it was this big like road case, and we opened it up, and it was like 3 bottles of Jack Daniels, and it was backlit, so it looked all awesome when you opened it up. And the coolest thing about it is there was a card from them saying all this cool stuff, all this encouraging things about the game. They said that the Lars character should have boob physics and all this kind of cool stuff. It was really. I want to say, like, there was a lot of people in the media that tried to pit us against each other, that say that we hate each other, right? And I talked to Helen from Harmonix all the time. Basically, it's like, yeah, we want to beat each other and making better games, but I don't hate those guys. Like, they're game developers, they're music game developers. We come from the same cloth, It's just we wanted to make better games. We wanted to outdo each other each time. So that was really all there is to it, But we just
I love it.
Yeah, that's
What happened? There was an idea where we were talking with Adam Jennings, and he said that you guys were pitching ideas for Guitar Hero, the Beatles, and I think Red Hot Chili Peppers.
or
What
Green Day.
happened to
You
that?
said.
I don't. So I remember the Beatles ones distinctly because we heard that Rock Band was pitching to do the Beatles, and we heard that they had a prototype that they had done, which was kind of like the old school, 60s Beatles. So we started to work. We said, wait a minute, we're going to work on our own pitch. So we put together like I want to say it was like a Yellow Submarine kind of like pop-up venue with all this cool stuff in it. And I remember watching the video that we had done when we were doing the motion capture shoot for Metallica. So then we pitched that to them. And I don't really know exactly what happened. I think it came down to money or something like that. But Rock Band eventually got it, and of course they made a great version. But we pitched our own version. I think it would have been super cool if we could have got to do that. In terms of those other versions, you said Green Day, and I don't remember the other one, but I know that like anytime there was a big band, there would be someone from Activision Music. We should pitch Guitar Hero this. So there was like Guitar Hero, Green Day, Guitar Hero, U2, Guitar Hero, you name the big band, they were trying to get that done. It just, it only worked out a few times, like Aerosmith, Metallica, that type of stuff.
So
That's cool.
I wanted
I have
to.
a tiny Sally question this time. Was Dave Mustaine or Megadeth considered to be added in Metallica as spin-off characters or some Easter egg?
No, not really. Because we didn't really even bring that up with the Metallica guys. We know that wasn't really something that they were interested in doing. I will say that we got to work with Dave Mustaine on, which guitar was that? Five? Was it 5 or 6?
No, Wars of
I
Rock
think
was
Yeah, it was in
when
Wars of Rock.
Wars of Rock, which is 6, maybe. Anyway,
Last game.
Yeah, it's 6. It's the
Guitar
last.
Heroes. We got and talked to Dave Mustaine, and he talked about, like he's like he understood that we couldn't do a Megadeth version. That's probably not. He says my band's probably not that type of band that might have that. We talked to him about that type of stuff, and it's one of those things too. Like you hear Dave's reputation, and we were very nervous going in to talk to him, but he's just he's a cool guy, and he just wants to make something cool. There was one point where he delivered the boss battle song that we have in the game, and we're like, it's cool. But we want to have more shred and solos in it, and he's like, of course I'll put more solos in. Are you kidding me? Of course I'll do that. So it was cool.
That's pretty cool.
So
I love it.
I wanted to ask something real quick. So one of the most obscure Guitar Hero games, which is Van Halen. As you know, Metallica and like the rest except like Smash Hits, they have their own bonuses that had like behind the scenes footages and all that stuff. So I wanted to ask, what was the reason for the lack of the behind the scenes footage for Smash Hits and Van Halen? Because the only proof that we had when we did the Adam Jennings interview was with him taking a picture of David Lee Roth, and then later he sent me a photo with Eddie Van Halen, and then days later, I came across this video from, I think you probably know, Justin Parrish. He had a demo reel for Guitar Hero, and we saw like the first ever mocap footage for Panama, which was never before seen for like 12 years. And it was there on YouTube for a long time. And, that begs the question, why wasn't there any behind the scenes footage for Smash Hits or Van Halen for that matter?
Yeah, another bad answer. I don't know. We didn't develop that.
Yeah, it was
those games.
underground development.
It was underground, yeah. So they came and they did do motion capture at our studio, which was awesome. And the cool thing about the Van Halen one is they were getting ready to go on tour, so they brought all their gear. They didn't need to, right? But they did it anyway. And they set up all their gear, and they basically just did like a Guitar Hero version of every song they were doing, and they cranked the music. I don't know why there was no bonus footage. I think it would make sense that stuff was there. I don't know. It probably has to do with some underground schedule, and I'm not really sure why they didn't get that in there. It's unfortunate because there was a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't think that Van Halen did the mocap because it was unknown for a long time that they actually worked on the game.
Oh yeah, they did the mocap. That's for sure.
Yeah, they did.
Tell me, true or not? Was Guitar Hero Van Halen actually called Guitar Hero Stadium Rock with Van Halen during development?
I don't know. I'm not aware of that.
No,
I've never heard that before.
I
mean, if it was,
a graphic of that. I think it was like a in-game screenshot of a main menu, and it had that logo in the bottom right, if I remember correctly.
So I was going to say, speaking of that, name changes. How far along do you know, like in the development process? When does it get changed from something like Guitar Hero 4 to something like World Tour? When does that name come about?
So the World Tour change came pretty early because we know that they wanted, the marketing people were pushing that. We were sort of resistant to that game because there was really not any kind of World Tour concept in the game. But marketing they float a lot of tests for a lot of names. And sometimes they come out and it's something great, and sometimes it's not so great. I will tell you guys this, and I'm sure it's safe to talk about this because this was 15 years ago. So when we were doing Guitar Hero Metallica, they tested a bunch of names, and the name that they came back and they told us what the name of the game was going to be. They said it was Guitar Hero's 80s Metal featuring Metallica, which is a horrible name on many, many levels. First of all, it diminishes the impact of Metallica. Most of Metallica's biggest hits were in the 90s, and it's a super long name. So it was terrible, right? And we said, we don't want that name, but marketing is like, well, that's the name that tested the highest. And then Metallica's like, well, fuck that. No, it's Guitar Hero Metallica. And they were, we were lucky that they didn't come here and say it's Metallica Guitar Hero, right? They understood the brand name and they understood how it flowed, and it made sense to make Guitar Hero Metallica. That would have just been, can you imagine picking that on the shelf? Guitar Hero 80s Metal featuring Metallica. And then you have
oh my god,
that's a long name.
It's weird. It was terrible.
I have a
Alright.
question about for Van Halen.
Yeah.
What happened to the Painkiller by Judas Priest, the song's intro? Because when you play the song, the legendary drum intro was actually cut from the game completely. So I want to know like what happened with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have no idea. Sorry, that's probably a question for someone from underground. I
Yeah,
don't. I
from
don't
That's
know.
underground.
okay.
I
Curious
warned
to
you
know.
guys. I warned you guys.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
can't remember what that is.
No, it's
Riddle
okay.
me
It's
in,
okay.
so-
We're having fun so far.
All right, so I have a question about American Wasteland. So in the game files, you can find a model of Tony Hawk, and it has a Thug 3 extension on the end of it, and it's like a modified version of the Underground 2 model a little, but it has a different like designer head. I was wondering, like, was American Wasteland originally meant to be Underground 3?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember, but I'm sure that was probably the plan. Typically when you do a game and you rebrand and you do sequels, you want to do at least 3, right? So we probably were calling it Thug 3 at least at the beginning. All of our, it's funny, all of the Tony Hawk projects, they're all called Skate from internally, Skate 1, Skate 2, which is funny because EA has Skate now as well, so then it becomes confusing for us. So yeah, it was probably called Thug 3. Like for example, Gun, which I didn't work on, I worked on briefly, but Gun was a code name. It was called Gun, and marketing couldn't come up with anything better, so we just wound up calling it Gun. So yeah, it was probably called Thug 3 at some point.
So speaking of Gun, how much involvement do you have with that game?
I mean, not a lot. At the beginning, we were all going to go over and work on Gun. Let me get my timeline straight. Yeah, we were all going to work on that. And I was working on it. You were coming up with cool ideas for missions and all this kind of cool stuff, and I was really excited to work on it. But then the idea was we were going to put Tony Hawk on the shelf for a year and then come back to it later. But Activision, they like their sequels and they like to make money, so we were going to give it to another developer to put it out. And me and a couple of other artists and designers said that, look, we don't want to give Tony Hawk away. We want to work on it, right? So then a group of us, branched off and started working on Thug 2. And then, we hired more people for both teams to flesh them out. So that's why, Thug 2 was a whirlwind of a project because it was a smaller group. And then we, took that on ourselves to try and make it better. That was my first game as a lead too. So I worked a lot harder than I would ever want to work again. I worked a lot on that game constantly, and I'd really rather not do it again. It almost killed me. My wife, after that was done, my wife said no more. So that's kind of.
What's your most favorite Guitar Hero game to play, or maybe to develop?
For both, it's the same for both. It was Guitar Hero Metallica because I was a huge Metallica fan. Growing up, and I remember the first time I saw Metallica was like out here at the Hollywood Palladium. They were opening for Armored Saint, so it was like 14 or 15. So I'm going to remember that in my mind all the time of how Metallica changed music. And then once we started working on the game, the cool thing about it is like like everybody has the songs that they love, right? But like Metallica music and the music that we put in that game is probably the most fun to play on Guitar Hero because it's so interesting.
Like
there's a lot
is so fun.
What's that?
Fight Fire with Fire is really fun to play.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much fun stuff that you can do on that, and there's a lot of great bands out there. But some of the riffs aren't interesting, or some of the drum beats aren't interesting. But for all the Metallica stuff, like them and all the bands that we had playing with them on the Discord, it was just so interesting, and I think it just was the best melding of things. And then, of course, the art style was great. We embraced all of their aesthetics, and I think it's just I think it's one of the best Metallica experiences you can have, let alone game. It's like you're experiencing the band in a new way. You're having new music. We have Death Magnetic in there, and I think it's a great way to just enjoy the band.
So
That was awesome.
speaking of Guitar Hero Metallica, so basically we all know that the band actually, well, mostly James and Lars did their mocap for pretty much their discography. But in some songs in the on disc, which is Orion, and I think and the rest of the Death Magnetic DLC, uh, with the exception of My Apocalypse, they're all playing like their loop animations because they didn't really did their mocap. So like what was the whole entire reason? Is it because of timing issues that they had, or is it a license stuff that probably they didn't really wanted to continue with the game? Maybe something along the
It
lines.
was mostly a timing thing. We only had a couple of sessions with them, a couple of long sessions to record as much stuff as possible. So we wanted to get us, every song we could, and then just get some loops that we could play to other things. part of that too was Death Magnetic was still being written as we were making the game, so it wasn't quite finished. So we had early versions of the songs. So we couldn't have the mocap stuff they're still writing. It just this wasn't possible. So we would have them, we would take those songs, note track them, and then we just put the loop stuff in there. It was just that, ideally we would go back and record all that stuff, but we couldn't get enough of their time.
Yeah, we heard from Adam Jennings that he was recording facial animations for the Death Magnetic songs before they were released. Yeah, he was like working on that stuff.
I think this is in the game. They gave us a song that has 2 different solos in it.
Oh,
You guys
yeah,
tell
so
me.
it's in a redemption.
Yes. Okay. So they gave us a song with two different solos in it, and then the album comes out with a version that has 1 solo. They're like, "Okay, this is cool for you guys, right? You guys have 2. You can put 2 different songs. It's exclusive." And we're like, "But it's extra work for us. We didn't want to do it."
Yeah.
Like we were busting our asses out. I mean, it was cool, but we're busting our asses. Like you say, just go note track that, which is like, okay, it's super easy, I suppose. It takes a note tracker who's putting an artistic balance in things. It takes them a lot of effort to put that stuff in there. So we had to do 2 different versions. That's fine. I'm glad that we did it, but it's like it was extra work for us.
For Metallica, like the game, what made you guys like use the normal fretting animations that were automated by computer probably compared to Van Halen? Because in Guitar Hero Van Halen, you see Eddie himself like mocapping his finger animations, which honestly look better than Metallica. What made it so that like that same way of animating the fretting and strumming didn't carry on to like Metallica before Van Halen?
I mean, I don't really know because Underground, maybe it was the decision they made, but I understand why you would. If you're going to have anybody doing fretting animations, you would definitely want it to be Eddie Van Halen. Sure.
Yeah, like in the song one, Kirk doesn't really tap. Or he just kind of frets it, which kind of puts me out. Like, come on, dude, just tap it.
Yeah, I think we ever did the fretting stuff in Neversoft. So yeah, I missed opportunity, I suppose, for some authenticity.
So
time constraints too. I mean.
So
So I have another question for American Wasteland. There's been a rumor going around that Hollywood was originally meant to have the movie lot playable. Was this true at any point?
Yep, that's true. We were going to have that in there for sure. We're going to have that, and there was one other level we were supposed to have. I can't remember what it was. So a friend of mine, Josh O'Brien, who's a designer, he works at Lost Boys now. He was going to work on the movie lot. I remember I felt so bad. So, we're all stressed. So he went out and had a couple of drinks at lunch, and I came back sitting at the table with the executive producer. We're thinking about how we're going to get the game in scope. And then I had to tell him we're cutting his level. And he was so sad. I felt terrible. But then he sort of like stepped up, and then we brought in some other stuff for him to work on, some other level stuff. So yeah, we had to cut that one. And, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
So, I want to continue something with Guitar Hero Smash Hits Van Halen. So, in the credits, you're actually credited with the special thanks, and I wanted to know how much involvement outside of Metallica do you get into those 2 games?
So, I mean, we did, meet with. I met with Wolfgang and Eddie a couple of times, and then it was mostly them, coming in and doing their mocap, and we discussed some things about, how the game was developed. But it wasn't really a lot. It was mostly underground stuff on devices, and we were, busy working on other stuff. If they had questions about how things work, we would help them. But there wasn't a whole lot really. It wasn't like co-developed or anything like that, I would say, other than them using our mocap facility.
So, quick question. I'm not sure, but do you know the history of how Wolfgang wanted to make Guitar Hero Van Halen by any chance? Like, is it the same like the scenario where like Donnie Harrison contacted MTV and Harmonix to make their Beatles rock band, and then like go on develop by doing something like that sort of stuff? I'm not sure.
From what I understand, that is what happened. Like that Wolfgang was such a big fan of the game, and he was like, we got to get this done. Like he was super involved in that, and I know that he helped pick a lot of the opening act bands as well. It was I think he was really a big force behind getting that done.
Yeah, I mean you gotta have Stacy's mom in there, so it's gotta be that important to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of I'm not sure how into Guitar Hero into the community because I'm not sure Asai played like pretty much full combo the whole entire game set list, and he even questioned that the solo acts, the guest acts on Van Halen were like kind of odd because you would imagine, somebody like Eddie Van Halen or David Lee Roth to pick out their own songs, but then you have like these 2000s pop songs.
Full fighters and
Yeah, and including myself, I thought, well, this is an interesting set list. And and there was a rumor that they said that Wolfgang was the one who allegedly picked up the guest act set list. So, I'm not sure like how that whole entire process went. I'm not sure if you remember by any chance. Like they just said, okay, let me just get my iPod out and then let's see where this goes. So,
Yeah, from what I understand, he was very, very involved in that. But like, what you have to understand is there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes to get music licensed for the game. So basically, at least from our perspective, I can't say specifically for Van Halen, but like we come up with a list of songs that we want for the game for whatever it is. Even if it's Guitar Metallica and Metallica wants it or we want it or Guitar Hero 3, whatever, we pick some songs. We talk to the music guys and they try and license the music, and they go back and they talk to the licensors and try and get the thing. So there's a lot of things that go into the process of us trying to get it. First of all, you got to get signed off from the label, you got to get signed off from the publishing, sign off from the band, sometimes sign off the band if they have some sort of involvement in the rights still, and then you have to go and figure out if the masters actually exist in a stemmable form that we can actually use. Which a lot of times that's not the case. So even if we have a song that's fully licensed that we want, we can't actually use it because people that are writing classic music in 1975 never really thought that this was going to be used in this format. They just sometimes recorded it on just a couple of tracks. So there's a lot of things that go on there. And sometimes, people just don't want to license their music. Led Zeppelin is a great example of that. We can never get Led Zeppelin music. It's one of those things like people say, oh, you know what I think you guys should do? You should put Led Zeppelin in your game. Like, gee, I never thought of that. Boy, wow.
Led Zeppelin.
But they always
are
said no,
hard
they
to
never wanted to
license.
license their music.
So, okay, so quick question. So, actually, yeah, we can ask like two. It's kind of similar. So, first off, for Guitar Hero Metallica, yes or no? Is it true that Angel of Death was going to be in the game but wasn't included? Was because of the lyrics containing the stuff from the Holocaust? Is that true?
Yeah, so that was an interesting one because Slayer is one of my favorite bands, and that Raining Blood is probably my favorite thrash album of all time. Like I can listen to it all the time, and I love it. And Angel of Death is an amazing song, and it certainly is not a pro fucking Holocaust song by any fucking stretch of the imagination, right? But that song was approved, and now it winds up being this weird thing. Like, okay, this is Guitar Hero Metallica certainly caters to the Metallica band. Guitar Hero is like a family brand. So how do we bring up this? Kids are going to be singing that. It's going to have this weird conversation. So what are we going to do about it? I mean, I don't know. So I sort of left it to other people's devices because, like, personally, I love that song. I want to put it in there, but I know that it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation for some people. So the song wound up not getting approved in the end, but we got another Slayer song, and it's fine. So we had Slayer in there, and it is what it is. Like Metallica was pretty insistent that they had to have Slayer in the game. It's like, well, you can't have it like this without Slayer. That doesn't make any sense. I totally agree.
Okay, so for the
I
next
have a
one,
tiny question.
which is similar. So in Guitar Hero 5 on Wii, there's a MIDI file note track of Led Zeppelin's what was it, Black Dog
Black
Live,
Dog
and
live.
it never. I think it was actually supposed to be in the game, and it's a live rendition. I don't know which concert was it, but there was Jimmy
That was
here recorded
1973.
the full band on Clone Hero and had the vocals on Guitar Hero, and like the whole thing was sharded on expert. Wasn't missing any
With
notes.
vocals, lyrics.
Yeah, everything. Like I don't know if you know anything about that. Like that Black Dog was supposed to be in Guitar Hero 5 by any chance?
Well, that file should never have made it to disk. So whoever did that is in trouble.
Oh, he's gonna get in trouble.
Oh no.
We've never gotten licenses to do Led Zeppelin music. We have no tracked Led Zeppelin songs for fun because we want to prove that they're fun to play, and we've made pitches to the band. I know that we did some pitch of like some concert. It might have been that of showing a concert, live concert footage, and then putting some no track stuff to it, and try to pitch it to the band. But it never really went anywhere. They never wanted it done, so they're very protective of their stuff. So it never happened.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I think Led Zeppelin, if either of them was either on Harmonix's Rock Band or Neversoft's Guitar Hero, I think it really could have actually made a whole big of audience. I don't know. I don't know. Imagine if Jack Black out of nowhere just say, "Hey, Led Zeppelin, go make a go license your songs on Guitar Hero," like he did on School of Rock. I'm not sure if you have heard of that. That he actually did like a concert or something like that, and he called that to do that. I don't know. I personally thought that they missed the chance. At least Beatles gave harmonics a chance. I mean, you have like iconic songs from Yellow Submarine. You have the entire album of Abbey Road in there, even though it's DLC when completing it. But I think Led Zeppelin should have definitely gave Guitar Hero or Rock Band a chance, if anything, because right now, when it comes to like to rhythm, it's all just custom songs, made from us, the community, and all that stuff. Giving like a chance, obviously.
From what I understand, like Jimmy Page was warm to the idea, but Robert Plant really had no interest. I think if it's in terms of money, I don't think they care about money. They've made their money and they don't care. And nobody really knows what is the hang up why they didn't want to do it. Like it could be anything.
Yeah,
it's their music.
I have a question. Has Neversoft ever made an original design for the Grim Reaper? Because in Tony Hawk Pro 8, his appearance was from Guitar Hero 1, and in Guitar Hero 3, he used his appearance from 2. And then he ultimately got cut from the franchise as a whole, being replaced with that skeleton with the metal mohawk on its skull.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
I could ask I speak to the art director of that game all the time. I could ask him, but I don't remember that one. No, I don't know.
Sure, no worries.
No worries, no worries. So, yeah, you know what? Let's go back to Guitar Hero 3. So, Red Octane got bought out by Activision and pretty much joined you guys for the development. So, I don't know. What do you think of first? Oh Christ, we're gonna like do our third entry of the franchise, right? I mean, like, do you guys had high hopes that like with the set list you have Welcome to the Jungle, you have Pearl Jam's Even Flow, you even have the legendary Through the Fire and Flames by Dragon Force. Like, do you ever thought this could either go really great or this can go down the shitter? I don't know. Maybe somewhere.
Yeah, at the beginning it was like, well, how do we make a game like this? We've never made a music rhythm game before. Like, how do we do it? And it's like it was just starting to learn about, okay, we have to get a sequencer and we have to learn how to note track using MIDI tracks and trying to get as much information as possible there. And then it was like once we got things up and running, we had to figure out how to get the feel right. That was a big thing. Like, we didn't really understand about, like, one of the first times we showed a preview of the game, it was really difficult for the guy that was playing it because he was hitting, I want to say he was hitting late, so you have to have a note window, an early and a late window, otherwise it doesn't feel right. People can't be precise. It was making the game too hard. We had to figure out those little subtleties that go into making the game feel better. So it took a while for us to get there. But once we got that stuff sort of up and running, we started to get this cool soundtrack in there, and the game started looking good. I was pretty confident the game was going to do well. And like fans have been asking for, put Through the Fire and Flames in there. We put that in as the credit songs. That was like the cherry on top. Like, once we got that in there, it's like, yeah, people are gonna like this.
That's very interesting.
Guitar game on a skateboard engine.
Guitar Hero skateboard engine. I mean, yeah. So, I don't know. Actually, yeah, this is a very good question. So, you've been working for Neversoft at that time. So I wanted to ask, what was your first experience meeting Adam Jennings, and I'm not sure if it's either you or the executives at Neversoft that decided to make him the face of Neversoft. I don't know. Can you tell me your experience working with him as a mocap actor and as a facial lip sync actor as well?
Yeah, I mean, we would see each other every once in a while, and he'd come in and he'd put the dots on his face. The interesting thing is, he would go be doing his facial capture thing, and then he'd come back and he'd go to the water cooler and grab a drink, and he's got all this crap on his face, which was kind of funny. He would sometimes talk about music and all that kind of stuff, and he put in a lot of hard work to get that stuff done. Like, you can't really discount the quality of the work that he was doing. He's doing all this crazy facial movements, like, and right on his face.
He's done amazing work.
Yeah, done really amazing work.
Why didn't Pandora have any appearance in Guitar Hero 3?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was just a workload thing. We had to cut some stuff to get things done because it was coming on hot, and I think we just made the choice to take her. And then it became a huge thing because everybody liked Pandora, so we had to bring her back.
Yeah. Because I think if I remember correctly, the game was being developed alongside Proving Ground, right?
3 and yes, that's correct. Yes. So like, I mean, people like don't really understand, like, making games is super hard, right? Like
True.
sometimes, like even now when I'm working on the wrestling game, like, we sometimes cut some features and people get all up in arms. It's like, well, it wasn't working right. We had to cut it. We had to, put a resources somewhere. We're all humans that try and work on stuff, but people don't seem to understand. It's like, oh, it'd be so easy. You just do this and this. I'm like, yeah, it would be easy, but it's not. So there you go. So it probably was just a character bandwidth issue, and we said,
I
okay,
mean,
we're gonna pick a character.
I mean, I think I'm not sure, but you can tell me it's either true or false that doing Guitar Hero World Tour, then Smash, well, not Smash Hits. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can technically count. Then 5, and then Band Hero, and then Warriors of Rock. Like they're all pretty much just like heavily modified versions of the engine from Guitar Hero 3 and onward,
Versus
right?
Yes, but we always try to add some new stuff to it and improve things in the process. Like that's one of the things that was so crazy. Like I can say specifically that I worked on 6 Tony Hawk games because there was one every single year. I don't know how many Guitar Hero games I worked on because I kind of worked on some of them to smaller degrees, but it was like we were making 2 games a year. Like what kind of company makes 2 games a year of a major franchise? It's crazy, right? And
Yeah.
I know that it's just kind of an expansion version of a game, but there's a lot of work that goes into doing those things, and it's all a part of like our production pipeline being as robust as it was in order for us to be able to crank that stuff out. And in the end, it's what did us in. We put out too many games.
Interesting.
Quick question. From what I said earlier about the name change, real quick, was there any other name changes for 5, or has that always been kind of 5 internally and just kind of stayed that way?
No, they wanted to call it something else for sure. Marketing came up with some other idea for it, and I can't remember what it was. And we pushed and kicked and fought and screamed and said we need to call it Guitar Hero 5 for God's sakes. Why wasn't World Tour called Guitar Hero 4? And I can't remember what the name was, but I'm sure it was something that we all hated. So it became 5.
So speaking of Guitar Hero 5 and World Tour, you guys have guest rock stars, which is people that aren't with us anymore. You have Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and what was the
Michael
other guy?
Jackson.
It was who did Ring of
But
Fire? Johnny Cash. Yeah.
about taking likenesses of deceased rock stars to be added in the game as playable characters. How difficult was that?
Okay, right. I mean, so there's a lot of things that go on. Like as developers, you want to have cool guest appearances of the game. Activision really loves their celebrity too, so I think they pushed that extra hard in World Tour. We had a ton of people in World Tour. I think we had too many, but it is what it is, right? So, I mean, we thought it would be cool for fans to be able to play these characters, and a lot of times you have to work with the estates to get them approved, and it sometimes puts weird restrictions on things. Like the Jimi Hendrix one was very, very hard because there's a lot of people you have to talk about.
I bet.
And then his use was limited. So we tried to later on sort of remove the limits to that. So then we had things where like Kurt Cobain is singing the Spice Girls, and it offended a lot of people. So it wound up being a weird thing. It's like, okay, you sort of like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. It's like if you want to restrict them to one thing, then people will get upset. If you let them do everything, people will get upset. So I mean, I was all for let's have celebrities and let them do whatever they want in the game. It's for our fans; they want to be able to have fun. But in the end, I think probably it was more negative for us than anything. So maybe we should have avoided it. I think if you're going to use celebrities like that, you should really just have them for for a small use maybe. I don't know. It was a weird thing. Like I think it worked out well in Guitar Hero 3 because you had Tom Morello and Slash and those guys, they play guitar and it was perfect, right? But in the end, it sort of got us into trouble with other people doing other things and lawsuits and stuff, and it just wasn't a fun thing to deal with right anymore. So I think we probably could have scaled back on that. But I mean, you guys can see the way Activision uses celebrities in Call of Duty and stuff. They love that stuff. They just love it. So you have to work with that.
Do you recall who were the actors who did Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and Johnny Cash? They said that was Neversoft employees.
I remember Kurt Cobain. I don't remember the other two, but I remember the Kurt Cobain. I want to say he was one of our note trackers. He was perfect too because he really had that like sort of slumped over thing. Yeah, I don't remember who the other guys were. I do know that Cameron Davis, a character or concept artist, he did the motion capture for King Diamond in Guitar Hero Metallica because King Diamond, he has a bad back and he couldn't really fly out, so he did that motion capture.
was Jimi Hendrix intended to be a playable character for all like the other instruments? Because in the game files, it was stated that he had like a description and he had a price tag of $500,000, and it was intended to like play other instruments as well. So what happened to that?
I mean, that's the same thing. That's our intention. Is like as a game designer, I want to give players the tools to have the freedom to do what they want. But the license holders wouldn't allow it, so it wasn't something that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Also, another quick extension. Was there like an idea to make Randy Rhodes to play the songs for Aussie and World Tour and have Cliff Burton play bass and guitar in Metallica? Or maybe Jason Newsted?
I know that we had talked about the Cliff thing with the Metallica guys, and I think that they didn't want to do it, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure, but we did talk about it. Randy Rhodes thing, I don't remember that coming up. I know we always want to have cool guitar players in the game, and we probably discussed it at some point, but I don't know how serious that was. I don't think we ever talked to his family about it.
Mhm. So, oh yeah. So speaking of these, so we noticed that Motorhead re-recorded Ace of Spades, and then I think you actually met with him in the studio, and then I remember in the video that
Lemmy?
you yeah, Lemmy Kilmister, Kilmeister. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but you said that in the World Tour video, he's Lemmy, he differentiates from a lot of people, right? So I wanted to ask, like, how was your experience meeting Lemmy, and then doing re-recording Ace of Spades for Guitar Hero Metallica, and then I think Harmonix got a hold of that license. I think of that re-recorded
Because he
version.
was a rock band too, I believe.
Yeah, it was in Rock Band too.
So I will say, when meeting Lemmy, I went on with Joel Jewett, the president of Neversoft, and we were judging videos for like some Guitar Hero contests. Like fans came in and they made little videos of them singing songs to win like something for the game. I don't remember what it was to fly out. And so Joel and Lemmy were judging this contest. They were looking at all these videos. 2 bottles of Jack on the table, just sitting there drinking and just shooting the shit. I just was a fly on the wall. I was kind of like super intimidated because first of all, it's my boss also, who's an intimidating guy. But then he's sitting there and talking to Lemmy, and like Joel is like fanboying out on Lemmy about, oh man, you're such an inspiration to me. And they're sitting there drinking. It's so funny. So I'm like sitting there going, all right, I'm just gonna like this. As for the re-record, I don't remember if they did that specifically for us or if they did that for their own. So a lot of those bands, and I remember Twisted Sister was one of them. They would go back, and so a lot of them lost the master rights to their recordings, or they never had them. The label had them. So, but they would have the publishing rights, so they would have the rights to the composition. So a lot of times they would go back and re-record those, and then they would have the master rights and go use this version. And if it was a good enough version, we would certainly take that, and then the band would get the benefits for it. So that might have been overhead.
That happened with Cult of Personality specifically, or the band themselves said, let's re-record a different solo for the game?
Yeah, so they wanted to get back together and re-record it for us, which was great because,
I love that solo.
I never thought that those guys would get back together, right? And if you ever listen to the solo, there's a part where he like grunts when he starts to do it, like in the very early in the track. It's pretty cool. And yeah, he made a crazy solo. It's different, right? Because everybody knows that classic solo, but I think he did a great version.
Also, the Sex Pistols re-recorded songs for Guitar Hero, right?
Anarchy in the UK.
Yeah, they got back. That was interesting too. They kind of, I think the reason there was because the stems for those songs didn't exist in the way that we needed them. So they got back together, and then Steve Jones was like, "Oh yeah, I recorded the bass, which is how I did it before. They couldn't play anyway, and then so they recorded the songs. They had a little show that we got to go see. They played a little reunion show. I think it was at the Whiskey, and it was kind of cool to hear them play their old classic tunes. It was cool.
Yeah. Broad question, but what can you tell us about Band Hero 2?
Oh yeah.
So we were starting to make a Band Hero 2. I know that for a fact. A good friend of mine, Alan Flores, who's a designer that I've worked with forever, he was going to be the lead designer on that particular game, and they were working on things, particularly things to add new mechanics to change the way that it was. When we did the original Band Hero, at first the Band Hero was just the name more than a game. They're like, make Band Hero. I don't know. First of all, Activision wanted to change Guitar Hero and start calling it Band Hero. And we thought that was crazy talk because Guitar Hero has this like brand recognition, right? And my thing is, I've never heard of a Band Hero. I don't know what Band Hero is. I understand that you're Band Hero because you're all in a band, right? who's my favorite? Name your top 5 band heroes. I can't do it because it doesn't exist. I can name my top 5. So when they said they wanted to make Band Hero, we're like, what is the identity of this game? And we decided to make it more focused on pop music, right? Which is what we did. We brought in Taylor Swift and a bunch of stuff like that, and just try and differentiate it from the core product. And I think the game turned out really well. I think it's actually super fun and really accessible, which is cool, which is what we were trying to do. So then the thought was we were going to make Band Hero 2 to sort of extend that, with change some of the mechanics and add some new stuff. But, as you can see, comes when the industry went away.
Yeah,
there's actually leftover content in Guitar Hero Wars of Rock from Band Hero 2. There's basically a folder called Band Hero 2 Research, and inside of it, there's a model of the guitarist Clive Winston with a bunch of pink light streaks that animate around him. So a lot of speculation happened that Band Hero 2 was going to have like warrior powers, but kind of like pop. Was that true?
I don't know. Beats me. You guys know more than me. This is scary, You guys know those files more than I
do. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Who wants to ask next?
I was going to ask a question.
I was going to ask, what led to the redesigning of some characters, like let's say Judy Nails, Pandora, or Axel Steel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a character artist. I'm not the art director, but it was mostly just trying to change the looks, right? Trying to make them a little bit cooler, So we sent them the concept art and tried to make them better and try and change some things on them. And I know that some of the characters got some flack about their styles changing too much or leaning one way or the other, but that's art, it's subjective, right? So we're just trying to change the way they look, trying to make them a little cooler.
That's very interesting.
All right. And one more.
Can I ask
a very short question? Who is your favorite Guitar Hero character out of the series?
I do like Lars. He's cool.
Lars is
how can you not like
really
him?
is.
So that's probably him. Yeah, I would say probably him. I just imagine him doing some weird stuff off in the forest, and what I mean, like who knows what he's up to up there. So.
Do you know that Guitar Hero Wars of Rock was going to be the last Guitar Hero game, or did you just have to find out that it was just that the whole entire franchise was canceled by Activision in general?
We didn't know going in. I mean, we thought we were going to make. So Activision has this thing where, like, numbers are like this. Next year we expect them to be like this, and then like this, and then like this. And then when they start going down like this, they try and figure out ways to make them go back up, right? So when we were doing the last one, it was kind of like, okay, we're going to cancel all the other SKUs. We're going to do this last one, but we expected to do like this, right? This is the only one. And when it became clear that wasn't happening, we had this horrible mass layoff in the company. And it was just a terrible day, terrible day. So many friends were gone, so many hard workers, so many amazing people were let go. But then the horrible thing about it is we had to keep a couple group of like extra people that we knew we were going to have to lay off around to help finish the game. Yeah. And so they did that, and it was just this awful march that we were doing to finish the games. It was just very sad, because people loved working on those games, and we worked very hard to get them done, and yeah, you never know going in what you're going to do. And then the weird thing about it is a lot of them went to go work for another company that was going to try and do another Guitar Hero the year later, and it didn't work out, and they got let go again. So it was sad. So, the industry is.
Yeah. So what happened with Guitar Hero 7's development, and were you involved in it? And what really happened in general with it?
Oh, that's the next one, right? The one that was being Vicarious, I think. So I wasn't involved in that. That was another company, but a bunch of our people went there to go work on it. And there were some changes to the Guitar Hero controller, the things that they were doing. I think that it got shut down like almost a year to the day after those people went to work on it. I don't know what the decision was. I never got to play a build of it or anything. If it wasn't fun enough, or if they didn't think it was going to fulfill the market requirements, or I don't know what was going on there, but it did get shut down pretty quickly.
So this is something regarding, speaking of downloadable content on DLC. By any chance, was Neversoft supposed to do like their own DLC releases, or do you guys just let Beanox do their whole entire work, like with Smash Hits and then the rest of the DLC?
I'm going to try to understand. I mean, a bunch of Neversoft people worked on DLC as well.
I mean,
like a lot of downloadable. Go ahead.
No, like at least from what I've known, I think Beanox did the majority of the DLC releases. I'm not sure. Maybe you can confirm or that.
For Guitar Hero 5?
There was a lot of Guitar Hero, a lot of Neversoft people that worked on Downloadable Combat as well. Yeah. It was across all of the studios. I can't specifically say who did what, but they all worked on it.
Okay, that's good to know. So I want to do a little segue, and I wanted to ask, how big of a wrestling fan are you?
Yeah, I was a wrestling fan, in the '80s, with Hulkamania and the WWF and the Ultimate Warrior and that sort of stuff. And then I sort of not didn't really pay attention to wrestling. But I've been at Visual Concepts for almost 5 years now, working on wrestling games I've worked on.
Awesome.
That's really
I was like
awesome.
four wrestling games with the new one coming out. So now I watch too much wrestling and I talk about wrestling all the time. And I didn't expect to become a wrestling fan, but such an appreciation for the craft of what these people do, the characters they create, the physicality of what they're doing. It's unlike any other sport, and it's kind of like hard to watch others theatricality as not see them as being boring. So it's weird now. It's like, like I know people love MMA, and like that's cool. Yeah, where's the entrance of the fireworks, man? Come on, like I want to see him have a big comeback. It's weird. I never thought I would like wrestling because I always thought of this thing for 14-year-olds. Like I was a 14-year-old when I used to like it, but I really like wrestling.
Okay, so I
Can
want
you?
to I want to give the spotlight to Switchblade because he's
My
a
friend.
huge WWE fan and he currently plays
WWE.
the
A
newest 2K
lot.
titles. So I want to give
So
him
you're
the
excited.
spotlight to ask some questions towards that, please, if you want.
Thank you very much, October. Once again, Alan, thank you very much for your time. We're very appreciative of it. Yes, wrestling. Funny thing is, I was talking to Dottie yesterday about what makes wrestling so interesting. And yeah, like the way you described it, it's live art. There's a lot of theatrics to it. It's like it's a performance. But my question to you is, you said you've been working with Visual Concept and you've been working on the WWE games for 5 years. You said so. That's 2K
20.
19 was the first one I worked on.
Oh,
Okay.
It's almost 5 years. Yeah, getting close.
2K19. What are your thoughts like on 2K19? I know that from the gaming community's perspective, that's regarded as one of the critically acclaimed titles in the series. So, what was your thoughts and like what was your experience working on 2K19? It's very well received.
Yeah, it was weird because I came on sort of late in the project, and it was mostly just I was working on the universe mode. So a lot of it was me figuring out how universe mode works, and then we were doing research into getting the MyGM mode back in the game. So it was like,
Okay.
how can we make universe and MyGM the same thing? What is it about the modes that make them different? What is it about the modes that people like? I mean, I enjoyed working on 19. I don't have a lot of connection with that one because it was mostly like I made some suggestions and things, bug fixes and stuff, and worked on it a little bit. But it mostly was like it was almost like fully cooked by the time it came out. But that was also the last game that we worked on with Ukes too.
Yeah.
So it was this weird kind of like a lot of it is like we want to fix this thing. This is broken. This is broken. You sort of toss it over to the people at Ukes and like sort of fingers and pray and hope that it gets fixed, right? Because they're off there in a different time zone working on their own stuff, and then it comes back and then maybe it gets fixed, maybe it doesn't. Which is why it was cool to bring it in house for us to be able to work on it full time. And then we made 2K20, which you guys all know wasn't great.
Yeah, it's you guys turned it around though with 2K22. It's for a lot of people that have played the wrestling games, the conversation is 2K19 versus 22. But so going into 22, it's safe to say you've definitely had a much more hands-on experience, like managing the project. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I mean that's my first project there as a design director. I was like a senior designer working on 19 and 20, and then I will say this: like 20 was a brutal project, and I am proud of the work that we had done there. The game is not good. I mean, there's no question about that. It shipped with a lot of bugs, but the people
Yeah.
people don't understand. People were busting our asses to get that game even out the door in a state that it was even playable. And a lot of hard work went in there, and we learned a lot. A lot of that was sort of untangling systems that were in there from the previous developer and figuring out what we're doing with the new one and stuff. So, but I'm glad that we were able to take the time to develop 22 and make it better and take things in a little bit of a different direction by adding combos and adding some cool new stuff. So, and putting MyGM into the game. So I think that pretty excited about the future of where we're going to be able to take this now that we understand how our code base works and how we can get things done better.
Nice. Likewise, I'm very as someone who And I will say this, when I did get back into the wrestling games, it was 2K20, but I got into it when, like you said, the bugs were ironed out for the most part. So when I got it on PlayStation before I got a PC, it was a fun game. I did enjoy 2K20, so I will say that,
You were one of those guys that said, "Hey, man, it's not as bad as you guys are saying. Come on, guys."
Yes, it's one
That's
of those
cool.
YouTube videos revisiting it a few years later. Is it
Yeah,
as
yeah,
bad?
that's cool. Well,
So,
thanks.
I do have a question. So, on taking it into a different direction, right? Like you said, with the addition of combos, with the grappling system not having a one button reverses all, which, I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed. Like just one button reverses everything, like the Arkham games. But I did want to ask about like the speed and the pacing of the game, because I don't mind it. I think it's actually cool that you get to do two slaps into like a super kick or a suplex. But one thing that I noticed that was like removed, and I want to know what you guys thoughts were, was the chain grappling sequences that you could initiate in the match. Is that something that you guys are thinking about bringing back, or what was like the design philosophy or choices that went into taking it out? Because I actually rather enjoyed it.
Yes. So basically, we had to strip the game to its core and get the core combat working. Chain wrestling, I think, serves a purpose, and it makes it a little bit more authentic because there's a lot of wrestling starts with a lockup, and then a guy goes through position, and we'd like to be able to make it more authentic to real wrestling. That's part of the simulation aspect that we wanted. But it wasn't really working the way that we wanted, and we wanted to focus on getting that other stuff in there. We would probably bring it back at some point in the future once we can figure out a cool way to make the system understandable to people and make it feel more authentic. So at some point, we'll probably bring it back.
So I wanna ask something regarding 2K20. So during development, do you got like what exactly do you guys had like difficult having to develop? Was it the mechanics for I don't know for how the wrestler moves, how they combat, or I don't know maybe something that for you guys like gave you a really pain in the ass to get the whole entire thing ironed out?
Yeah. So I will say everything. I mean, the whole game it's a difficult game to work on. It's huge, it's sprawling, and then it serves lots of different. It's a big wide audience for the game. So you have the people that just want to do wrestling. There's play people that want to do a simulation of their own sandbox universe, which is universe. You have the people that just want to make creations. You have people that want to play the game online. There's a whole bunch of aspects that we need to consider when we're making the game. And a lot of it too is just understanding the code base better, especially since it's been inherited from another developer. There's code base and data that's been done there. And since it's been done for so long, a lot of the times things don't completely make sense to someone who hasn't developed the system. So you look at them like, I don't understand what this table does. So if I change this number, then this thing explodes. So it's very, very difficult to be able to get that stuff done. So it's kind of hard to explain how difficult it was to make that game. It was basically just a big unraveling of all of this knotted up code base for us to try and figure out how things work. There's so many systems there that people forgot, like that, like there's things like instant replays that no one was working on, and there's created championship bugs, and there's all this other type of stuff. There's so many things that were involved in it. It's just a lot, and I'm glad that we finally got to the point where we're being able to turn a corner and make the game better. But yeah, it's making games is hard just in general, and making games on someone else's code base makes it a little bit harder. So yeah, it was just a lot.
And so another thing regarding
Mm.
due to the impact that 2K20 made, it led to 2K21 not being actually made. Like, was that a decision of I don't know if it's either on your part, on you guys' part on 2K, or like I don't know, maybe it was just they said, we just have to like postpone it until the next year. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, developer and publisher decided that we would take a year off. And in some ways, I'm glad that 2K20 happened because the franchise, wasn't really going in a great direction. It was getting kind of stale. So we needed to reboot things, right? So that's kind of why it was good that we got to take a year off and change things around a little bit. We know that that game wasn't great. So a little bit of a shakeup was necessary. And now I think wrestling games are sort of back in the conversation again. And people can talk about, like 2K20 absolutely went viral for the wrong reasons, for all of this terrible stuff that was happening. But now I see 2K22 videos and people are playing viral things where they make, 30 crazy characters and they put them in a Royal Rumble and all this cool stuff that's going on. And I'm glad that it's able to come back in a good way.
Likewise, I'm a huge wrestling fan. If I could, this question, I'm not sure how much you can really speak of it, but seeing as how this the Guitar Hero community is much modding heavy. What's like 2K's exact thoughts on modding if you guys ever have it? Because like if you've seen some of the work they do on PC, like when it comes to superstars, right? So when 2K22 came out, take Austin Theory for instance, he was a babyface, no facial hair, but around the time the game was released, like in real life, he was sporting, a soul patch basically. Like what is your thoughts about the community like modding, like at least updating the attires, and like are you guys like against it? Like what is that like when you guys see modding, if anything?
And there's modding, and then there's people that are like, taking content that they should be paying for. There's two different types of things. Like, I think modding is cool personally, but when people are taking stuff that they shouldn't be taking, I can't speak for the company of what their stance is on modding. I know that I don't think that we make it easy in particular, so I don't really know what the company's stance is there. Sorry.
No, I hear you. Like I said, it's probably a tricky question to navigate with. Yeah, one of the conversations and like the community I'm a part of, we weren't a fan of like the people trying to take the DLC characters. Like I said, it's just mostly updating the looks of current superstars. But yeah, I understand it's a little bit higher up there. Go ahead, Dottie.
Hopefully, we can give you guys enough tools inside the creation suite to be able to update them the way that you want. Like that's the goal, is to make the creation suite be the end all be all. You make whatever changes you want to character, update their looks, do whatever you want, and just make them up your own, and then put them up on community creations.
Mm-hmm.
There was a rumor that Tony Hawk's or Skate 10 might have been in development around maybe GH3 World Tour. Is that true? Like it got cancelled, maybe?
I don't think so. I don't remember any work on a Skate 10. I don't think that was the case. I think by that point, and no, I'm not aware of that. No.
That's all right.
If I could ask you, so you said you recently got into wrestling, like you got the bug, right? So currently, right now, who's one of your favorite wrestlers?
I say this all the time, and at work, and I think they make fun of me about it. I love Rick Boogs. I think that guy's freaking hilarious.
Nice, yeah, okay.
And I started watching Rick Boogs when he was early on NXT, and then I started watching his training videos. I'm like, holy God, this guy's a maniac. Like, I started searcher squatting because he does it, but he does it with like 800 pounds and does all this crazy stuff from his injury, and now he's bigger than ever. So I love Rick Boogs.
Nice.
He's a treasure.
Nice.
My favorite wrestler was John Cena, because when I was a little kid, I was always watch him, and he was always basically like my childhood hero of wrestling. I watched a lot of wrestling, but honestly, like I felt like I liked Cena more. Same.
I can agree there, Dottie.
I enjoyed John Morrison and CM Punk. Honestly, those two.
Oh man, and ECW, that reign was good.
Yeah. I think John Morrison was, for me, pretty underdeveloped under the company on WWE. I think he's a really good wrestler, especially with his acrobatics. And that one time in the Elimination Chamber in 2011, honestly, what a fucking fantastic move from him. It's sad because I genuinely do enjoy these two wrestlers, and they're not working for them anymore right now. But I always have like this deep appreciation for what these guys do, just like how I have deep appreciation for you, Alan, and Adam, and the rest of the guys at Neversoft for developing these games that
you guys are all awesome.
Honestly.
And on the note of superstars, if you don't mind me asking, so when it comes to like the development of the 2K games, like which superstar on the roster, like if you've gotten the chance to work them, as like seems like they're actually a fan of the video game? Because I know they're on the road, they're traveling a lot from state to state to state, sometimes overseas. Like, but who, like when they come to work on the game, it's like they actually like they seem like they're a gamer.
Yeah, I mean, there's two that really spring to mind. Well, it's kind of three. There's Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze.
Yes,
those guys are just. I mean, they're up, down, down stuff. When we were developing MyGM, we watched a lot of their videos of them playing the old SmackDown versus Raw GM mode, and they're just so into it. And then so we've talked to them, and they gave some suggestions of things. They're legitimately excited to be in the game, and they love it. The other one is Drew Gulak. So we had Drew Gulak as the tutorial
in
2K22, and like he has been pinging us recently about we should do this, we should do that. He's very, very excited about being involved.
Nice.
So I wanna ask something. Has Bad Bunny ever visited the headquarters for 2K? Because if you know, he's currently like the superstar here in Puerto Rico right now, and he's now a pre-ordered bonus in the newest game. So I wanted to ask if he ever came on to like see you guys develop this new game. Have you met him personally? I don't know, maybe something.
Yes, I've never met Bad Bunny, but the thing is too is we're all doing remote development. We've been doing that for years since March 2020. So I've been in the office just a handful of times. Um, I know that he has probably had to go in and get scanned and motion captured, but I don't know where that would have been. Probably not necessarily one of the 2K main studios. I've never met him. I know that people are, they really like his involvement in the game. They're excited to have him on, but we don't really have a headquarters per se anymore. Well, we do. We just, we're remote right now. So
That's interesting.
On the question of DLC, so obviously one of the biggest returns to the company was Cody Rhodes, who was formerly in All Elite Wrestling. When he made his debut at WrestleMania, like how big was the outcry for him to put him into 2K22? And like, what was like that conversation like internally? Like, I know he didn't make it because the DLC is, I believe, already planned in advance. But like, what was that conversation like? Seeing how many people wanted him in the game.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. And as wrestling fans, we wanted to put him in the game for DLC. We totally wanted to do it. It was just, we got a schedule to keep, and we have another game to work on, so it was going to be a difficult thing. But fortunately, now he's in the game as a full-on roster character, and good luck to Cody against Roman, and see what happens. Maybe he'll win it. It'll be fun.
You think he would win in 2K23 with that 99 overall?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think there's going to be some shenanigans involved. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, last question before we head into general
You're
community
gonna ask the
questions.
Roman Reigns question. What about something about the rating or something you're gonna ask?
Oh yeah, he's overpowered. And legendary difficulty, he's gonna kick out of 30 finishers. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
So,
The real Roman.
before we head into the community questions, I wanted to ask what goes into the decision of like making John Cena the face of the new WWE 2K23 game. Like how
I
that's
can't
go?
see him.
Like how do you go into this decision? Okay, this superstar will be the face of our newest IP AAA game and whatnot.
Well,
He's
we
been
tried to
in
do some synergy with the showcase team, and once we decided that we were going to put Cena as the showcase character, and focus on his greatest challenges, it sort of worked together. It's like, oh, maybe we should put him on the cover, just make him the cover athlete as well. And I think it worked out pretty well. We did the same thing with Rey Mysterio last year.
Yeah, okay.
As, showcase character. So it worked out well that way. So that's kind of like trying to bridge the two modes together. We haven't always done that, but I think we've been doing that recently. And it's
nice. No, that's.
I'm very excited to play the new showcase for this.
Cool. Yeah, I played it. I just finished it last week again, and it's awesome. There's some cool surprises in there. I think you guys gonna like it.
One more question, if I could, before we turn it over to community.
It's okay.
So going back to the conversation about universe mode and like what separates it from GM, like so you said you had a little bit of hands-on with universe. What are some of like the changes, or what were some of the challenges differentiating it from MyGM, and what are some of the changes that fans can expect? Like for me, I could say that I enjoyed the cutscene aspects, like mid-match run-ins, pre-match, post-match. Like how can you like talk about that?
So I can't really talk about what we have planned for 23. I think we're still embargoed on that because the game is coming out soon. But I will say this: like early on when we were talking about making MyGM versus Universe, like what is the difference between the two modes? Like what type of fan bases do they both serve? It's like Universe is a sandbox where someone can do whatever they want. They want to make a game of all people that are wrestling universe, or everyone on their brand is under 5'5". They can do that. They want to make, Austin Theory the undisputed champ and make him go forever. They can do that. They want to make, want to recreate their own brand of, unicorn themed wrestling. They can do that too. It's freedom, right? Sandbox, do whatever you want. MyGM is a management sim game, right? So there's like things that you need to require to be able to win at the game, to be able to play. So do we put those requirements into Universe? Like, well, then the sandbox person is. We're doing them a disservice. We're saying you should play the game this way to win, but the sandbox player is like, well, I don't want to win. I just want to make a sandbox of cool stuff. Why are you putting this in there? And then the MyGM player, well, I don't need all that freedom. I want to win the game, right? So we decided to separate them because they serve two different audiences essentially. There's been a lot of talk of trying to merge them, and like maybe at some point we can put some features between them. But right now, I think it's really important to have a really good management sim game experience and a really good sandbox experience, and just keep them separated because that's what is going to serve those particular groups better.
Nice. Okay.
So okay.
Thank you for the insight, sir.
So this is a very important question before heading into community stuff. So in your LinkedIn, you were a co-founder for this school called GameBot School. Could you explain what was the whole entire thing was about, if that's fine?
Yeah. So after I left Neversoft, I worked at a company called Zindagi, and we worked on Sports Champions 2. Worked there for a little while, and we started working on some mobile titles. But I always had this thing where I wanted to teach kids how to make their own games because I was sort of my son how to do some stuff with Game Maker, and I started doing it out of my house just for fun. And then I got 2 students, then 5 students, then 10 students. Then it was like, well, I have kids in here all weekend, and it's ridiculous. So then I encouraged a partner of mine, Alan Flores, designer who I've worked with forever. We decided to strike out on our own and create our own business. And it was fairly successful for 2 years. We had some really successful summers where we did summer camps teaching kids how to make games with Game Maker and Unity. We had probably 5 or 6 sessions during the summer with, like 30 plus kids, and it was working out pretty well. And then we hit a fall where it was like, well, no one signed up, and running your own business is very, very hard. So basically, we decided to shut the business down after 2 years. We were right at that inflection point, where a lot of companies are like, they always say that there's that 2-year mark. Do you keep going? Do you give up? So we were at the point where we were using, our own personal savings to keep it afloat. We didn't, get any loans or anything like that. So maybe if we would have gone a loan and tried to expand, we could have kept it going further. But at that point, we were like, we decided to just shut it down and focus
Hmm. I mean, at least you have fun with it. I mean, it's interesting concept if you ask me. I actually never thought that you actually made like a mini school for like making. Well, I mean, I'm guess
A
at the end of the
good
day,
idea.
yeah, at least you have some kids right now, grown ups right now that are probably gonna do some indie games as of we're talking right now. But it's very great that you told us that experience. So, anyways, without further ado, let's go with the community questions made from Guitar Hero World Tour Definitive Edition. So, if Dodi wants to go first, please do.
First question is from Akiba Komori. So Akiba Komori asks, what are your thoughts on Guitar Hero World Tour Definitive Edition, which is the mod we make for World Tour PC port?
Well, I haven't seen it. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm sure you guys did
That's
a
all
great
right.
job, but I've never seen it. So I had to
That's
sort of
okay.
take a step back from the Guitar Hero stuff for a while. It was a big part of my life for a long time, and now it's kind of like,
That's
I'll let
okay.
you guys keep it going.
That's okay. Oktoberfest can show you what we do.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this one is from 21st Century Guy. He asks, why did the games that utilize the World Tour engine, Metallica, Smash Hits, and Van Halen, get worse per entry? Like, as in the responsiveness of the engine.
I don't know. Did they get worse? I mean, it seems like subjective.
A
I
lot
don't
of
know.
a lot of people,
I think it's
it wa-
because
the tap notes engine was primarily the ones
yeah,
that.
the top notes were hard to hit.
Yeah, I don't know if there was some tuning variables that were changed on those, especially if it was done by Underground. If they changed anything in regards to that, I don't know. I don't know why they would. Maybe they made a decision to make it harder. I don't know.
But there's this thing with Van Halen that people don't get confused that the game has the new Guitar Hero logo branding for Van Halen, but it uses the World Tour engine and not 5. And I thought of that because Underground Development has like the most complete version of World Tour source, which they can't have like the Guitar Hero 5 source because they were probably actively developing the game, so they
Yeah.
can't use Van Halen on 5 engine.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
That's just like a personal thought. Yeah.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, I'm sure, between different companies.
Yeah.
I mean, you would be surprised that sometimes like people want to note track things way differently, and there's a lot of variables that go in for doing these things. They could have changed some things. I don't know what the decision was to do there.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard asks, hello, what games, if any, do you draw inspiration from or look to while developing Guitar Hero games?
We looked at a lot of different, like music rhythm games. I mean, I remember playing a lot of Elite Beat Agents, and there was this weird little app thing on the DS where you could just strum and sort of play guitar on it. I can't remember
It
what
was
we played that a lot.
You put it into the Game Boy cartridge, and then you had like a carpal tunnel in it for like 15 minutes after playing it on the DS.
Yeah. I mean, we just tried to look at all kinds of music rhythm games, play some Dance Dance Revolution, all that type of stuff. Understand, musicality of the game as well. and then we all play, we play all the other games that are out there as well, and we played lots of Rock Band 2 to understand what they were doing, and nothing revolutionary, I'd say.
I have a question from that one for that's an interesting name. What is your opinion on freestyle games with DJ Hero series?
I think DJ Hero was pretty damn cool. I mean, it's a kind of a niche market, but they did a great development on that too. I have a renewed appreciation for music licensing by the way they were able to handle it too, because they had to license master and publishing on they had to get out of master and publishing on both sides of the artist and also on the remix. So it was a huge pain in the ass to get everything licensed in there.
True.
I think they did. I think it was a cool game. I wish there were more games that utilize the DJ Hero controller. I've seen people do things like play Overwatch with the DJ Hero controller, and I like that thing. I don't have one laying around. Do I? No, I don't think I do. But
it's a cool little thing.
Okay, so the next question I have is from Kyle's Poppy. He says, after Warriors of Rock, what direction do you want to take the franchise, and what ideas do you have?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I get asked about this all the time. Hey, we should bring Guitar Hero back. What would you do? It's like I don't really have a good idea right now. Like I think about this a lot because we can't just bring it back in its original form because then it's just a retro game and it's fine and it'll be what it is. It needs to evolve in some way. But there have been attempts to try and evolve the series too much. Like Guitar Hero Live, they did some stuff, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. So maybe one of these days I'll crack the nut, but I can't right now because I think it needs to have that old Guitar Hero feel, but it can't stay the same. And I don't really have a great idea for it right now. So other than adding new content to it, I don't know what else you would do. It can't stay the same. It's gotta be freer. It's gotta be more, more. I don't know where you would take it at the moment. You guys will figure that out. You guys can go from
I have a question.
Interview.
I have a question for a friend of mine, and he says, "Are we gonna see more Thunderlord music?"
Yeah, that's funny. I get that asked a lot more than I was expecting because that was almost 20 years ago. So my kids have been talking. My kids are grown now; they're in the video. My daughter's 22, and in the video she's like 5. And then I think about maybe bringing it back and doing something new, 20-year anniversary type of thing. Maybe I did start work on a second album. This was 15 years ago, and I had a bunch of it recorded, and they just sort of lost steam on it, which was unfortunate. I would kind of like to go back and do it at some point. Maybe when I retire from games, I'll do some goofy kids metal again and go back and do it. It's weird how many people sort of like gravitated to that. I still get money from Spotify for it and stuff. It's weird. I wouldn't expect that because it's this goofy thing that I made. But yeah, maybe I'll bring it back.
That's funny. Okay, so Nightbringer99 asks, what is your thoughts on Freestyle's game's reboot on Guitar Hero Live?
Oh, I never really got a chance to play it, but I have some friends that played it and they got really super into it. Like they said, it was super fun. They said that the changing of the controller was a leap in difficulty and a leap in immersion too.
Yeah.
I haven't never played it myself. I can't really give a good answer to that. I do know that they had ambitious stuff with the service that they were running, and it's unfortunate that they last.
Yeah,
I mean, I do love those
TV.
freestyle games, but yeah, I didn't actually get to play it myself. Like I said, I needed a break from that for a while.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have a question from ARock1024, and he asked about Sports Champions 2. Do you know why there was 5 sports instead of 6, which was the original number of sports available in the original game, the first one?
Yeah, I mean, it was development time. Again, we had to cut things down. I know there was some call to there was a lot of call to put like disc golf back in there. We get a lot of disc golf fans that really wanted to put that back in the game, but you have to build a bunch of courses and do a bunch of stuff. It's a lot of extra effort. Almost all these answers are that way. I'm sorry. There's no like secret sauce. It's almost like we didn't have enough time and resources to do it all. I'm sorry. So that's kind of how it is for any game that you're going to say. This is what it is.
Okay, so Lockster asks, were there any plans to port Guitar Hero 5 Warriors of Rock to PC before the series was dropped?
I had never heard of any such thing. I do not know.
I mean, World Tour got, well, yeah, you have Guitar Hero 3, Aerosmith, and World Tour pretty much being ported to PC by Aspire. I'm not sure if it was like, I don't know, by Neversoft.
I mean, if there was a market there, I think that Activision would have contacted Aspire to do that. I think they probably thought that the market was too small to get that done. So yeah, I'd never heard of any idea supporting it, so that's probably why it didn't happen.
All right, that's fine.
I have a question from my friend Stranger, and he says, was there other guitar controller designs planned?
Probably. I mean, they're always trying to innovate the controller, right? And I've seen lots of weird things that they were mocking up. We did touchpads and stuff, and they've done sliding controllers and all kinds of different types of things. So yeah, if they were going to keep going, they probably would have done some redesigns of the controller too. But, I think it was probably part of the issue. Like, you got to settle on something that works, and and figure out what people are willing to buy. So they probably would have, Activision loves to sell the hardware. They would have done something.
Okay, so Noxon asks, what's the hardest decision you had to make in the Guitar Hero series? Or, on the contrary, what's the biggest regret you have in the franchise?
Hardest decision. I mean, there's a lot of hard decisions when it comes to picking music. And sometimes we have music that we really like that we have to cut or that we can't get. I will say there were some conversations about trying to get Dimebag Darrell in the game. A lot. There was a lot of pushback from trying to put him in the game, which I always thought was unfortunate because in terms of being a Guitar Hero, he is a Guitar Hero. So I would have loved to have gotten him. But I will say the thing that made me feel the grossest about working on Guitar Hero is at some point I had guys, rock stars from other bands call me and basically ask me to get their songs in the game. People that I looked up to. And it's not a decision that I can make. It's something that has to be done with a company, with licensing, all that type of stuff. So then I'm kind of became this like record executive asshole that tells them we can't put their songs in the game. And I hated that feeling. So they would call my line personally. So then once it became that we officially weren't doing Guitar Hero, I kind of felt sort of a sense of relief that I didn't have to be that guy anymore. Like I felt like such a jerk. Like who am I to be able to tell these guys that we can't put their music in the game? Like I was sort of glad that it went away in a weird way.
Yeah, it is
I
very
have
hard.
I have another question from my friend Biz, and he asks, who would win in a battle of the bands, Dr. Hunt or the Thunderlords?
Dr. Hump? Oh yeah, that's Dave Rose's band. He's a good friend of mine. I gotta give it to Rose, man. They'll kill us. We're just for kids, man. He's serious. Serious in quotes.
A lot of competition.
Yep.
Okay, so Shinjir asks, did the team ever experience any crunch while making or releasing all sequels and spin-offs between 2007 and 2010?
Yeah, of course. I mean, every game involves some amount of crunch. I think Neversoft was better at managing crunch, than a lot of other companies. I certainly didn't crunch as hard as I did, in the earlier Tony Hawk days. Yeah, there's almost always crunch involved, and sometimes, game developers are, they're sadists. They put crunch on themselves. They want to do it for the good of the game, so they're going to be there. They're going to put in the extra hours. And it's one of those things where now as an industry we're trying to get away from that, and I really as someone who manages a team of designers, I want to get away from that more than anything. I don't want people to walk around being proud of the fact that they're crunching. You should be embarrassed that your company has people that have to crunch. People should be able to make good quality games and have a personal life. And then when they have a personal life and they have pleasant experiences, they can bring those inside and make the game better. Yeah. So I would love to see crunch go away. I still have this, badge of honor mentality that I did my time in the trenches doing crunch, and I just want to get rid of that. I think people should. It's just a toxic thing to have. So yeah, we crunched. All games have some type of crunch, so we should, but it should go away for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking on the crunch time, obviously when it comes to the 2K series, sorry to bring it back to that, it's a yearly release. Has there ever been, and it may not happen, but has there ever been talks or conversations to make it a biannual release? Like obviously the circumstances that led to 20 and 22 was probably 1 in a million. But speaking of getting rid of crunch, is that something you guys would like instead of it being a yearly release? Instead of it's 2K. What's the 2K25, and that gives you more time to. Has that ever been a conversation? And do you think it's possible?
I mean, not really, because 2 years goes 2 years, and then the roster and all types of things get out of date. So we kind of want to keep doing it. The good thing about doing a yearly franchise is, when you come to the end of the project, you have a bunch of things that didn't make it to the game, and you can take those things and roll them into the next one and make it better. So that's why they have these sort of incremental releases. I can't really say for 2K, but I will say in terms of the Activision thing, we talked about maybe taking Tony Hawk off a year or something. And really, their thing is like, okay, cool, we'll take a year off. The next one needs to sell twice as much. Like it's just flat out a business decision for them. And like if you take a year off and the game sells 150% of what the previous one did, that's not good. You didn't make as much money because they wanted to sell twice as much. That's kind of why, like, companies like Activision are very like, we need to put a game out every single year. That's how it works as a business decision. But I think, in terms of, creativity, we can do some things when you're working on a yearly franchise. That's kind of like, it's like my forte. I've been working on yearly franchises forever. It's like you can do some long-term initiatives that you start like in 1 year, and they'll pay dividends in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years along. It's kind of the cool thing about working on it. You can still make the game better incrementally, but then have these sort of leaps of new technology and new quality along the way.
So it's like a catch-22. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
there are
Dodie,
people
I have a question.
games that come out 5, 6, 7 years apart. And I don't know how you can do that, honestly. If you've been working on a game for 3 years and you don't know when it's going to come out, it's like, that must be draining.
Oh, yeah.
To not know when it's going to come out. But I understand you're trying to put this high quality bar in there, but it's like, are you working hard? Or when are you crunching? When are you putting the extra time in? Who knows? Like it would be a weird thing to me. I've never had to work on something like that, and I've been fortunate with that.
Thank you.
All right.
if Metallica was supposed to be a guest act in World Tour before they made Guitar Hero Metallica, because there was like illustrated art for like James Hetfield for World Tour, and then it just later came on to be Guitar Hero Metallica.
I don't think so. I don't think that conversation ever came up.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, if you heard about the recent acquisitions with Microsoft and Activision Blizzard, do you think they'll make a new pave to a new Guitar Hero game?
Yeah, I've heard talks about that as well. Apparently, Microsoft is very interested in a lot of old Activision franchises. Guitar Hero and all that stuff being some of them. So I think that they probably will put together some sort of R&D team and try and figure something out. So, yeah, whenever that merger gets approved, if it gets approved, I think it would be. If they're going to bring back those franchises, I think it'd be exciting. There's so many things that Activision doesn't do with any of their old things. Like Pitfall is a great one. You can bring Pitfall back. I would probably play something like that. So, I think Guitar Hero would be a great one for that.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
I have Pikmin Gut too. How was the idea for the battle mode in Guitar Hero created?
How was the idea created? So, so basically, part of the inspiration was and we talked about this in some of the videos too. It was like, that movie Crossroads, the one with Ralph Macchio, where he's playing guitar against Steve Vai. It's like, it'd be cool to have like a battle like that, a guitar battle between the two. So that was kind of like the main inspiration for it. But what I think was interesting is, like, I remember discussing this with Tom Morello, where we're talking about what the boss battle is. And I go, have you ever seen the movie Crossroads? And he's like, I know what you're talking about. He instantly knew what I was talking about. So it was easy for him to make that mental connection to put the battle mode stuff in there. There were some things that I probably would have changed with the way the battle mode worked, But that's hindsight. I think it was fun. I think it worked out pretty well. I got to put some cool boss battle stuff in there. You got to fight Lou, that was cool. So yeah.
I think Lou was so satisfying after you win against him.
Yeah. And then it was cool song that he played too. It was my friend Steve Womet. So it was cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I read somewhere that Joe Perry was apparently indirectly responsible for that cover of The Devil Went Down to Georgia. Is that true?
Joe Perry? Really? No, I don't think so.
I read an article about that somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
No, I don't think so. He wasn't involved at that point, so I don't think so.
Okay, so Nevermind asks, do you by any chance have photos of the Guitar Hero Van Halen mocap sessions, like videos or photos by any chance?
Yeah, I do not. I know that there are people that probably should have them, but I don't have any of those. So I don't think they wanted us taking pictures anyway, but there were people videotaping and doing all that stuff the whole time. I'm surprised that stuff hasn't made it out on the internet. But I don't have any of them.
Okay,
if I did, I'd share them.
But the other question from Nevermind, it was that why are there full mocaps that were not used in the final version of the games, like Hot for T-shirt on World Tour, where it actually, for the vocalist, it actually had like an entire mocap animation, but it's only used partially. I'm not sure if you know the production behind that.
Yeah, I don't.
No,
Right.
that's fine.
I would have a boring answer anyway. Probably couldn't get it to work. I don't know.
Time constraints.
Probably time
True.
constraints. Okay, Dodi, you
I
want to
have,
ask?
yeah. I have another question from Biz. I'm pretty sure you may know him, Bigo Biz, the Tony Hawk glitcher and modder. He's the one who asked the Thunderlords and Dr. Hum stuff.
Yeah.
He asked if you were the one behind the no goats allowed out of bounds message in Proving Ground, and were you the person who put a carrot hanging above the ceiling out of bounds in the skate park skate lounge, teasing the B goats?
Proving Ground?
Yeah.
I didn't work on Proving Ground, but I'm sure that was put in there for the Bigo guys because we were aware that they would glitch out and go and skate in places they weren't supposed to. So we were aware of them doing that. I didn't work on Proving Ground at all.
Oh, that's all right. It's all right.
So this is a question from Hazelnut. Was there any mocap sessions for all the Neversoft era Guitar Hero games? Well, including, I guess you can say, Tony Hawk and Gun and all that stuff that were later scrapped. Do you know any stuff about it?
I mean, a lot of the stuff in the first Tony Hawk game, there's like him doing there's a session of Tony Hawk doing motion capture stuff, hurting himself. We actually didn't use any of that stuff because it was hand animated. It wasn't usable for some reason. But I'm sure that we've mocap way more stuff than we ever needed, for lots of things.
Yeah, that's.
I have a question from Donegan15. People talked about an issue with the Guitar Hero 3 engine, which is called Infinite Frontend, which would allow you to hit like hammer on pull-off notes way before the strike line or like the hit window thing, which makes the game significantly easy. But that bug was fixed in Guitar Hero Aerosmith. Why wasn't this fix for the engine was applied on the update for Guitar Hero 3 after it's
Maybe
released? No, that's okay.
maybe
It's
it wasn't
okay.
caught by our QA in time. Maybe we didn't think that the fix was safe enough to implement. There's a lot of weird things that go on when it comes to game development. So there's lots of times when you can fix something, right? In a game, like we can fix some data and in a patch, but what would happen is if someone has old save data and it's going to
It will
conflict with
break.
the stuff that's being updated, it can cause serious problems. So we can't fix something. It just happened more often than I would like. So it could have been one of those issues. I don't remember that specific issue. It sounds vaguely familiar to me. I sort of remember like, hey, we're going to fix this finally. I wonder if it would have caused any issues to fix it with a patch. It sounds like probably could have been a small programming fix, but I don't know why we didn't do it.
I wonder if the same like thing with the saves and the updates and stuff happened in the development of WWE as well.
Oh yeah, those things happen all the time. Yeah, I mean for every game.
I thought so.
Another question from Hazelnut. So this is a very interesting one. Was Michael Jackson considered to be a playable character for Guitar Hero World Tour since you had beat it, or was ever planned by any chance?
No, we never really talked about that. I don't think that was ever something that came up. I think that even if we were to try and get him a license for him, I probably would have been impossible too. So yeah, it never came up.
Were you guys working on a standalone Call of Duty game before being pushed to co-develop Modern Warfare 3?
We were working on some Call of Duty stuff, but I don't think the intention was ever that we were going to make our own standalone. I think it was going to be that we were going to wind up helping them before they wind up merging completely. I did work on Call of Duty for about a year when I was there. Some of my stuff wound up getting used, broken up and used in other parts, but I don't think the plan was ever going to be that we would make our standalone thing. It was going to be like, similar to how like Raven or those other companies work. They were going to work on the main SKU.
Because I've read somewhere is that before Modern Warfare 3, you guys were working on a game that was codenamed X1 using Modern Warfare 2's engine. But that was canceled because you guys had to work on the Special Ops Chaos mode for Modern Warfare 3.
X1. Okay, X1, I never heard of that one. I know there were some other projects that had, code names, but I never heard of X1.
So Hazelnut asks, why did all the guest songs on Guitar Hero Metallica have drum mocap, which is pretty much done by Andy Tony Hawk Pro Skater, who did the whole entire thing? Like, was that a decision on you guys, or like what was the whole reason behind that?
I mean, it's an authenticity thing, and we had him in house. He was there working, so we might as well have him do it. So, and he's a great drummer. So, yeah, we just had him come in and do it, and take part of his day and mocap some drum stuff. It was cool.
All right, that's pretty.
It's gone on mocap. So recently, WWE superstar LA Knight did an interview with Chris Van Vliet where he said that he was actually doing the mocap for some of the WWE games. If you're not at liberty to answer this, that's fine, and I apologize. But who is like doing the mocaps for the moves now? Before it was LA Knight, but who is it now?
Yeah, I don't know who they are. I mean, we do have some people that come in and help us. But yeah, it's not him. He's too busy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could say him, and I didn't know, but I don't really know who's been doing that. I'm not involved in those mocap sessions. It's mostly our gameplay designer guys, directing them and stuff. And plus, with all the restrictions of the last couple of years, they try to keep the sessions smaller too. So yeah, I'm not sure who's doing it, but they're all wrestlers, and sometimes they wind up being in our game event too, which is cool.
I have a question from my friend Picking Guts 92. He says, "Do you think that Activision still has the source code for all Tony Hawk and Guitar Hero games preserved somewhere?" And jokingly says, "If so, where?"
Yeah, I'm sure they have the source code. I'm sure they do. That's one of those things that I talked about this a little bit before. It's a little unfortunate that Neversoft engine isn't being used because it was some really powerful stuff. The scripting language
Well,
that we use.
yeah, it was very versatile as well.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that it's not being used anymore. But like source code is one thing. It's also having the people that have the expertise that know how to use it is another thing too. So if you
True.
were to take source code today and do something with it, first thing you would need to do is be able to port it to a modern platform, right? So you port it to PS5,
Yep.
right? So that would be a lot of work, a lot of hardcore engine work. So
Yeah, you would have to understand how that console works and whatnot, and make like a friendly environment for it. Yeah, I know how hard that can be.
yeah, it would be a challenge for sure.
I think Sadek would have under source codes because he's like been generally tampering with the game's engine with World Tour.
We're hearing it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's it's a very flexible engine. I mean, it is a shame it's not being used anymore. I think it'd be interesting if it were today, but it's interesting to see how much it's evolved over time. Like Warriors of Rock and Band Hero, it really came along. A lot of features were added to it, and it really shows.
True.
Really shines.
I have a question about that actually, about the engine. Was there ever like a internal name for it, or was it just like Tony Hawk engine or
I'm trying to
Guitar
think.
Hero?
engine?
Did we have a name for the engine? I don't remember. I know that I worked at companies where they had engines called like Rat Bag and all kinds of things like that. I can't remember what the name of our engine was. I don't know if we had a name for it.
I have another question. It's from Jackie. This one's quite a little bit long, but my question is: Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock 2 took many characters a refresh on their design back to what they used to look like before Guitar Hero 3, but many got cut from the game or the story. Was it because they wouldn't fit in the story, because of being two bands, or because of the lack of time from the development?
Yeah, it's probably just the development cycle thing, like we just have so many resources and, just wind up, deciding where to spend your resources and kind of things. That's just the way that goes. I'm sorry, this is such a boring answer. I have to give it over and over again. But yeah, that's probably all that it was. I know you guys would like something like cool, like, oh, we had to cut it because it's
That's
a weird
fine.
symbol. That's just, isn't that true?
No worries. At least you're here with us, so that's fine.
Yep. I
Uh,
have a tiny question from Shug. It says, "How was it translating Guitar Hero to skating, and if actually vice versa? Like, how hard was it to use the Tony Hawk engine to tailor to Guitar Hero's needs?"
Yeah, I mean they're really, really different. Basically, we have a 3D engine in the back, but then we have to come up with the Note Highway stuff as well. So it was tricky. But I give a lot of credit to Paul Robinson. He was the lead programmer on that, and now he's like a tech director at Activision. He's one of those can-do kind of guys. He's like when he first came on, he ported Tony Hawk to the GameCube, and he kind of did it on his own. He's one of those guys like, I think you can do it. It looks pretty easy. And then he went and he dug in and he did it. So I'm sure that
That's
it
awesome.
wasn't easy. It's just that it's a lot of effort on his part to get it done. So yeah, I mean, I give a lot of credit to him.
Hmm.
okay, so I have another one from Jackie. This one, another question about Guitar Hero Aerosmith. Why the team decided to include only Dream On as a big hit of the band? Like, there's nothing about the band's biggest hits like Don't Wanna Miss a Thing, Crazy, Crying, Amazing, and other ones. And Guitar Hero Van Halen and Metallica has all the band's biggest hits.
remember. Sorry. I think that might have been partially because of what Aerosmith's involvement too. They probably had some say in what the songs they wanted. I mean, a lot of those songs, like Crazy and stuff. I mean, those songs are fine, but they're more of a sort of like slower ballady type of stuff, which doesn't really translate that well to playing. Maybe maybe that was part of the decision. But I know that Aerosmith was pretty involved in selecting the music that they wanted involved too. So maybe they had some reason they didn't want to put those in there.
I have another question about Tony Hawk. Was there a specific reason why female creator skater wasn't available in story mode for American Wasteland and Proving Ground? Or was it just like time
I'm sure that
constraints?
was a bandwidth issue, probably because we probably would have had to record, double the amount of voiceover and hire a bunch of actors, to do that stuff from a female perspective. In hindsight now, probably would have done it for sure. Like it was a huge oversight on our part to not, cover that the female addict of the skaters. But at the time, it was a decision that was made, and it was probably just a resource issue.
That's all right. I have a question from Digital Catcher. He asks if Guitar Hero were to be rebooted, would incorporating real guitar and bass be similar to Rock Band 3 and Rocksmith implementation of them with gameplay? Would that be a consideration? Or maybe pro drums with like the cymbals would be also a consideration? So basically, would the Guitar Hero would have real instruments to play with if it were to be rebooted? Would that be a consideration?
I mean, I don't know for whoever's doing it, but if I were going to do it, I wouldn't really want to put in a real guitar because you're just playing guitar. You're not playing a game. Like, I mean, you could gamify
Yeah.
playing guitar, which is what Rocksmith does, which has its own thing. But it's like part of the reason why Guitar was so popular is to take the skill level from being able to fret and play guitar all the way down here to just be able to play a couple of buttons. Right?
True.
Part of what was so fun about it. So, I mean, if I were to come up with a direction for that, I don't think I would go that direction. I think Rocksmith does a great thing with teaching people how to play guitar. I know a lot of people that learn how to play guitar because of Rocksmith. So I think that sort of serves that niche. I don't think guitar would be a real guitar hero to me. I don't know.
From Seven Cravas, I think I spelled that wrong or whatever. How much did Activision have of an influence on the development of Guitar Hero franchise as a whole?
They were fairly involved. I mean, usually they let us do what we're going to do because we have a lot of pull because we can produce hits. But Activision was involved deeply in helping us get the soundtrack solidified and getting us guest stars and all that type of stuff. But I don't think it was ever really a thing from them that mandated like we needed to put features in the game. That never really happened that way. Joel was really pretty good at keeping us separate from what they were pushing. So I think it was a pretty decent relationship. I mean, they did a good job of getting us what we needed to make the game.
Okay, so I have a question from B Goat Biz. He just asks you about the goats and B goats since you are the goat man, and also maybe about the I think Uzis already asked about the Hollywood backlot original zone on one of the Tony Hawk games.
Yep, he did.
What did you want to know about the goats? Why did I put them in there?
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
I mean, I just put them in there because I thought it would be funny. I started putting goats in, and then it just sort of took off from there. I just put a goat somewhere, and then people started looking for the goat. And then, if it was a game that I wasn't working on, someone would put the goat in. Where do you want me to put the goat? That type of stuff. I just thought it was funny. So just a goofy thing, and then
It's
it
still
became a big thing, and it is what it is. So I like putting the goats in there. If I were to level designer still, I'd probably hide a goat somewhere. I have a friend who has a weird low poly character that created on a game we worked together, and he's put it in. He worked on a bunch of Matrix games, and he's hidden that character in every Matrix game he's ever worked on. So it'd be cool to find the history of that.
That's very very.
I have one final question. Is there any like scenes in any of the Tony Hawk games you can or any like characters or something like that you can recall that might not have been in the final game?
Might not have been in the final game. No, nothing springs to mind. I'm sure there's stuff. I know we cut things along the way multiple times, but I can't remember anything off the top of my head. Other than cutting the Hollywood backlot, I think there was one other level too, and I can't remember what it was that we cut from Wasteland. I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's fine.
This is like more or less for you. So when you find time to at least play 2K22 and 2K23. Are you more of a universe person that likes the sandbox like you were talking about before, or are you trying to get like the highest rated show? Which one do you prefer?
It depends on what kind of mood that I'm in. Like when I play my GM, it's like an intense thing. Like I want to win. You know, I want to destroy the other GM. But if I just want to mess around, I'll go into universe. And like I like to do lots of weird stuff when I'm playing. Like I love putting people through tables. I love taking off the turnbuckle pads. I love doing ladder bridges and all that type of stuff. So I just like to mess around. But it depends on the kind of mood. If I'm really being competitive, if I have somebody over, let's do my GM and I'm going to beat you. That kind of thing.
Thank you.
All right. All right. My final question. If you were to put a Metallica song in the 2K23 soundtrack, which one would it be? Like your personal favorite or something?
Personal favorite. I would probably put in Orion. Mostly because I just been my jam lately. Just it's such a cool song. So meandering and cool, and Cliff's bass in it, it's amazing. It'd probably be Orion.
Yep.
I've got one
that's
more.
a nice pick.
Well, since that's our final question.
Wait, is that a question?
Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah. Final question. You might not know anything about this. It's more of an asset thing. I know you did some world tour things, but we asked Adam. He had no idea. So there's a little clip in the trailer of Ozzy. He's got an animation where he throws a bucket. Something in a bucket.
Oh yeah,
do you know anything about the bucket?
I do remember him motion capturing that. I remember him doing that.
Right.
It's like he does that in the concert. He throws
water,
it's confetti or something.
A water bucket.
Water.
So I think he was going to do like some confetti thing. The interesting about that is when Ozzy came in, and he did his motion capture, the whole studio came out and played audience for him, and we cheered him on, and it looked like he was doing a real concert. And I think he did that bucket thing. I'm surprised we didn't include that. Yeah, but it was, we wanted to make him feel like it was a real concert. And that dude, man, so much energy when he's on stage. He gave us a full-on concert.
Yeah,
cool.
The water bucket animation is actually supplied in the game files, but it's hidden. But you can script it in just to appear, and you can have anyone else do it, not just Aussie. But with the minor exception of that, the bucket isn't there.
Forgot to ask this, but you've been in the videos on the Guitar Metallica behind the scenes. You have been seen like behind Lars, playing like drums and whatnot. And I've seen you in the Master of Puppets clip. So I wanted to ask, do you recall how many takes the band had to take to get the authentic, or like what would it be like the final version of what we would have seen in Guitar Hero Metallica right now?
I don't think they did a lot of takes on every song. I think it was maybe one or two, and I think sometimes we would do them normal and do them in the round too. So it was mostly just a single take, except for obviously, and you guys have seen this, the shortest straw one, which Lars couldn't get.
Oh yeah,
that one was over and over again. That was pretty funny.
Well, all right. I think if that's it, then Mr. Flores, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank
honestly,
you so much.
It's been a privilege to have you in this podcast. I honestly appreciate your time to be with us and tell us your experience with Neversoft and Visual Concepts and your early life. Can you tell the public where can we follow you on your socials if you have one?
We can get support.
Well, let's see. My Twitter handle is Alan Gamebot. I do mostly do Drums of War game, which is on Twitter. That's I made a VR game like about 4 years ago, so that's the one that I follow the most. So if you guys want to follow those, you can find me there, and might answer. We'll see what happens.
Oh, I have like two things. You're a Pantera fan, right? Because when me and Oktoberfest were looking at your Twitter, I saw the vulgar display of power reference in your profile picture. I had to point it out.
Yeah.
What's your favorite song from that album?
Boy. Yeah, it's probably Walk as well. Just the riff.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite part of that band is Dimebag's riff for just crush your soul. I just love them so much. So heavy, so groovy, so technical. I just love it so much. So yeah, it's probably Walk too.
And I have one word to say. On the behalf of the Guitar Hero and Tony Hawk community, we thank you for this time. It's been an honor.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime I can help, I love doing these things. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Same here for the WWE community. I'm really looking forward to 2K23. I hope I have a lot of fun with it, and I hope it does very well commercially and critically.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. You guys are going to love it. War Games is in it. It's so cool.
Oh my God.
You know
I can't wait. I can't wait. Also,
Golders.
one last thing. Are you familiar with Jay White, the Switchblade?
Yeah.
Are you a fan?
I mean, I'm not super familiar with his work, but I'm aware of him. You know, isn't he a free agent now? Isn't that the deal? Like,
Yes, and I hope he comes to WWE. So hopefully,
yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be good for us.
by 24, he'll be in the game. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Well,
Appreciate your time.
thank you for your time. This is honestly, thank you, Alan. I really appreciate you. I hope you have a really great day. And again, thank you for coming over and taking your sweet time these 2 hours. You have made some good history with us and for the Guitar Hero and Tony Hawk community. We really, this appreciation won't go under noticed. So thank you. So thank you so much. Honestly, you've been really great.
So much.
Thanks,
Honestly,
Ed.
Thanks for having me.
thank
It was
Have a
you.
great rest of your weekend, sir.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. Have a great
Yes.
weekend.
So
Much love.
Oh my goodness.
God,
Oh, that
fucking
was
damn,
great.
that was amazing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Bullets. I had to
Holy
change shirts. Holy shit.